Hi, my name is Robert Chelle with Chelle Law, and I'm an attorney that assists physician assistants with employment contract and independent contractor agreement review. So today I'm going to talk about new grad physician assistant contract review. So when I'm reviewing a contract with a new PA, what are some things that we go over, and certainly some things that they're completely unfamiliar with that they generally don't teach you in school. So the first thing would be compensation. I'd say most PAs are paid just via a straight base salary, very simple. You do the work, you get paid a certain amount, and that's it. But in healthcare, there can be hundreds of different ways of compensating a provider. And so you could be paid via collections, meaning you'll get a percentage of whatever the practice receives based upon your personally performed services. If you're working in a hospital or for a healthcare network, perhaps you're paid via RVU. I'm not going to get into the specifics of that, but generally they'll set a threshold, and if you hit that threshold either monthly or quarterly, you can get a bonus, or perhaps your base salary is based upon your last year's RVU productivity. So there's just a bunch of different ways that a PA can be compensated, and during the review, I make certain that they're completely clear about, all right, this is what you can expect as far as compensation. Then here's some red flags you need to worry about as well. Next would be malpractice insurance as a new grad. This is something you wouldn't have had to deal with before. You need to identify, are they offering you occurrence-based coverage or claims made? If it is a claims made policy, who has to pay for tail insurance? These things are very important. If you have to pay for tail insurance, it's going to be thousands of dollars that you're going to have to spend on that. And some people are just, have no idea between the different types of policies and what that means ultimately. Restrictive covenants, non-competes, non-solicits, non-interference. These are all the things that you can't do either during or after the contract ends. And so we want to make certain that you don't have a non-compete that completely wipes out your opportunities after the contract terminates. One thing that I'm very careful with any physician assistant is making sure the scope of the restriction in your non-compete is very specific to the employer. And let me give you an example. Let's say you're a PA working in an orthopedic practice. You want the scope to say you can't work as a physician assistant in orthopedics for 1 year and 10 miles from your primary practice location. You don't want it to say you can't work as a physician assistant within 10 miles and for 1 year. It makes no sense that an orthopedic practice would care if you're going to primary care or urgent care or going to be a hospitalist or working for a cardiologist. There's no rational argument that can be made that you going to a completely different specialty can compete with them. Therefore, you want to make sure that the scope of that non-compete is very specific to what you're doing for the employer. Next, termination. There will have to be a certain amount of notice that you have to provide. If you were working in healthcare before, perhaps, normally it's just kind of give 2 weeks notice is kind of a common courtesy. Whereas when you sign an employment contract, you're gonna have to give probably 60 to 90 days notice before you can leave a position. That's for continuity of care purposes. They want somebody leaving and then having a bunch of patients on a schedule with no provider to see them. Next would be some kind of repayment obligation. If you're paid a signing bonus or a relocation assistance, many times if you leave before a year or 2 years, you would have to pay back a prorated amount of those bonuses. So there are some very specific tax reasons that we have to be careful with those types of bonuses, and I'll discuss that with the PA during the review. And then next would just be kind of the supervision. If you are a PA, you're going to have to sign a delegation agreement with whoever your physician, supervisor, or collaborator is. And there's some very specific things to each state of what needs to be done. So you just need to be clear what the responsibility of you as the PA are. what are the responsibilities of your physician collaborator, and then making certain that those those things are being adhered to. Ultimately the PA can get some kind of board discipline if they're just completely ignoring the delegation agreement, and so it's important to keep that in mind. Now, most of the terms of supervision and the delegation agreement are not going to be in your employment contract. It's an entirely separate document that you'll have to sign with the physician, but it's at least good to discuss those things prior to you starting employment with someone. All right, well, that's a little bit about kind of new graduate physician assistant contract, red flags and things you need to be aware of. If you have any questions about your employment agreement or independent contractor agreement, feel free to contact my law firm. All of my information is listed below in the description, and I appreciate you watching the video. All right, take care.